He's on the phone with the client. Chris will be on shortly, a couple of minutes.
And I'm not sure what this symbol thing is.
Oh, here's
I
Matt.
give her, there he is.
Mr. Gifford. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have a quorum, so I will call the meeting to order at 6:06 p.m. I will do the roll call. Mr. Gifford.
Present.
Lori Jones is absent. Alan Kibbe, present. Jeff Mangels.
Present.
Chris McDonald.
Present.
Mike Matthews is not here. Dr. Pinto.
Present.
And Chris White will be on in a moment. We'll do the pledge. I'll rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the
to
flag
The flag
of the
United
United States of America
and to the
Republic
republic for which it
for which
stands,
it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice for all.
for all.
for all. As your work. We have public comment this evening, and I know some of our commenters are eager to move on to other city meetings they have. So we'll get right to that. We put it first on our agenda. These are the comment period is limited to 3.5 minutes. I'd ask all the commenters to state your name and any entity you may be representing, if any. And I'll also comment there will be no discussion on these items at this meeting. So, Amelia, if you could let our first speaker in.
Yep, and we have a few people with their hands already raised, but if you do want to comment, just use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of the screen. So first we have Lisa Shanahan. Lisa, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Great. Can you hear me okay, Amelia?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can.
I can hear you.
Great. So my name is Lisa Shanahan, and I'm speaking as president of the Norwalk Land Trust this evening. I'm also representing the other organizations that co-signed our letter that you received that's addressed to the P&Z Commission that was dated April 22nd. Respectfully, we're here to express our deep concerns with the pending O&G application to expand their industrial use on the Norwalk River. As you all know, the river is historically and economically one of our city's most important assets. The city and its leaders are trying to reduce the impact of heavy industry on the river. The river is now a place where, in addition to just working, people enjoy living, walking, and biking adjacent to it, as well as boating and rowing upon it. Ecologically, the river and its estuaries are extremely fragile and have been dramatically affected by industry along its banks. Save the Sound has given the Inner Harbor a D- rating for its health. This means that the wildlife that habituate the river are in critical shape. As storm frequency and ferocity caused by climate change becomes more profound and we absorb the 20 inches of sea level rise expected by 2050, how will the impact of this proposed expanded use of the river be adjusted to protect the river, wetlands, and human neighbors from damage caused by runoff, flooding, and potential breaches of the process brought to the site by these barges? And speaking of these barges, the increased barge and truck traffic imagined by this expanded use is much too heavy for this river, adjacent businesses, wildlife, and the residential citizens of Norwalk. The river hosts several recreation activities such as rowers, paddleboarders, fishermen, and recreational boaters. Increasing barge traffic by tenfold portends a tragic outcome. Residents will find the increased truck traffic unsustainable to traverse streets not built for this heavy use. And finally, one of Norwalk's prized industries is our renowned oyster and shellfish industry. This significant increase in barge traffic carrying heavy industrial products poses a severe risk of fuel and gravel spills, vessel groundings and collisions, as well as disruptions to existing commercial and recreational boat traffic. We urge the commissions that are charged with reviewing these applications to take a deeper dive into the impacts that this proposed use will have in the areas that we just highlighted. Thank you very much for accommodating our comments.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Appreciate your time out to join us.
Next, we have Linnell Jones. And Linnell, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. My name is Linnell Jones and my address is 10 Point Road. Thank you for creating the petition for the Deep Eversource hearing. Following the first hearing meeting, it is now obvious that Deep and Eversource are expediting the schedule. Neither attorney for Deep nor Eversource felt a site visit would be necessary because the work is underwater. They actually told the hearing officer there is nothing to see. No one can see under the water. It was only due to the email she received and the number of names on the petition that the hearing officer scheduled a site visit. In my experience, the more people show up during the site visit, the better. Thank you for getting information out to all neighborhoods and all neighborhood leaders who have the contact information for people unaware of this issue, its importance, and who may be able to write because they cannot attend the site visit or actual hearing. There's no chance Deep and Eversource will go back to the drawing board. This is the only chance of protecting taxpayers since the actual records, the signed letter by our mayor and the Eversource affidavit are not consistent with the October 2018 Common Council vote. It is critical to get as many as possible to the site visit, and many will have conflicts. So the sooner information is shared, the better. Thank you. Most know I strongly believe the Strategic Harbor RFP is a colossal waste of money and a seriously flawed process. So it's no surprise that I watched the first Strategic Harbor Steering Committee meeting. The meeting, just 30 minutes, defined waste of time, since many members did not have the 10-page work plan written by Indigo Blue. However, there were interesting moments. Chris had to remind Director Kleppen that it was Harbor who got the street end grant from Port Authority and the work already done. Astonishingly, Director Kleppen, who has written multiple staff memos for his P&Z commission about O&G's proposal, blew off Dick Harris's question about O&G's proposed activities and strategically did not share his memo or allow any discussion. Really, what O&G is proposing is not strategically going to affect the harbor, not of interest to this steering committee? Please. Watching the meeting, listening, thinking about Deep's and Eversource's public hearing process, it occurred to me, seeing Kelly Bloom at the meeting, that she is the attorney that you can ask to legally intervene for Norwalk in the Deep Eversource hearing process. Without an intervening attorney, this will be approved and Norwalk taxpayers will be left holding the bag. Please remember the 2 articles I shared when Greenwich questioned Eversource's misrepresentations. If Greenwich Legal had not intervened, there would have been no settlement. Thank you for discussing the need for legal intervention and approaching Kelly Bloom, Norwalk redevelopment attorney, the Norwalk Tomorrow attorney. Thank you.
Thank you, Linnell.
Okay, next up we have Roman Vengurovsky, and apologies if I mispronounce your last name. And you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Roman Vengurovsky. I'm the Director of Operations at Maritime Rowing Club. We've been located here on the Norwalk River as a rowing club now for 28 years. And I wanted to thank the commission for giving us an opportunity to speak. I wanted to talk about my concern and our club's concern about the proposed O&G's barge use on the harbor and the river. Maritime Rowing Club has about 150 kids that are primarily using the river and the harbor almost on a daily basis, along with adults. Increased barge traffic tenfold on the river is going to possess a substantial danger to our rowers and the whole rowing community. There are multiple rowing clubs that are utilizing the river daily. Most of the rowers are youth, and we are extremely concerned about the proposed barge traffic that is going to be occurring on the river. Along with the increased traffic, and the increased potential for ecological, environmental issues that can arise from so much commercial traffic, barge traffic on the river, we are deeply concerned. We do ask the commission to consider, limiting the use of barges and providing a greater safety on the Norwalk River. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up, Jim Schweitzer, and you should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
can.
can.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jim Schweitzer. I'm coach and board member at Connecticut Boat Club. We're located at the Oyster Bend Marina, 23 Platt Street. We have been here since 2010, and in iterations before we formed our club in 2010, since about 2005. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we are a 65 member plus girls, primarily high school age girls rowing club. And we use this area that you're talking about where the OG plant is on a daily basis. I submitted a written testimony just in case. I've been out on the river, just in case I couldn't get here. And I'll just read the rest of it. On a typical day, first of all, together with 3 other rowing clubs, Maritime, which Roman just spoke about, Norwalk River Rowing Association, which is adjacent to the O&G plant, and Fairfield University, which rows out of the Norwalk location. We use the river on a daily basis for rowing training and recreational use. We have, on a typical day, perhaps 200 to 250 students and masters using that river. I'm going to say 75 to 80% in the area primarily affected by this barge traffic from the Walk Bridge all the way to the top. We were surprised and disheartened to see the Harbor Commission approve the O&G application as consistent with the Harbor Management Plan, with seemingly no review or commentary on the safety factors considering around the use of the barges on this river. A key part of that Harbor Management Plan discusses the need for a safe use of the river for all river users. I have also reviewed the application submitted by O&G, and I see absolutely no reference, discussion, plan, or vetting process described concerning the safe use of the barges. It all deals with ecological and the land part. I have 2 videos, which I've shared with many people, that I'd happily share with all of you, which demonstrates the potential for significant safety hazard. One is a barge traveling south from the Yankee Doodle Bridge, taking up virtually the whole river. No one else can go by when the barge is on there. I also have a clip showing a typical activity during the afternoon of our practice period of all the boats out there, and the potential danger it shows is self-evident. I can forward these clips if you'd like to see them. Second significant safety consideration, seemingly not considered, is the increased danger at the construction site of the Walk Bridge. As an example, the rowing clubs have a monthly meeting with the construction team on the bridge to discuss current construction activities and its impact on our operations so that we can operate in a safe manner. The harbor master and the marine police are in attendance. Together, we work to mitigate these potential safety hazards. I've seen nothing of suggested concerning this barge traffic. In my discussions with that team, I found that there has been no interaction on safety with the O&G team with the construction team. I would suggest that this is an item worthy of further discussion, especially as the activity at the bridge has narrowed the channel significantly and at times closes it. So in closing, I really ask the Harbor Commission to reopen this item. You have suggested this item is a closed item, but I think there is much further discussion needed concerning safety and the river users. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Jim.
And the last hand we have raised, oh, no, we have 2 more hands. All right, next up is Tracy Craighead. Okay, Tracy, you should be able to speak.
I can. Thank you so much. Hello, Harbor Management Commission. My name is Tracy Craighead, and I am a property owner of 7 Park Street on the Norwalk Green, zip code 06851. And I'm also a member of the Norwalk Green Association. And I'm also the chair of the 3rd annual 2024 Norwalk Earth Day Festival that is being held this Saturday afternoon on the town green. This upcoming event is community-led and is happening in partnership with the city of Norwalk. And we're expecting upwards of 800 or more attendees, easily doubling what we had last year. Please bear with me as I describe this event in a little bit of detail, just so you can see why I find it relevant to this discussion. It's proving to be a wonderful and powerful draw for so many who care about the environment, both globally and locally. We have over 70 participants, that's exhibitors, vendors, and food trucks, and support across Norwalk's leading environmental groups, civic organizations, municipal agencies, local schools, legislative leaders, and our mayor himself. And equally important, it is a day that is also about our celebrating and highlighting all the great work the city is doing in Norwalk to protect the environment and our green spaces. Things like increasing walkability, improving sidewalks, adding bike parking, expanding public transportation, providing clean air protection, water safety, and sustainability, and promoting beautification wherever possible. In short, it's a lot of progress to be proud of. As of now, I doubt many of these involved and engaged citizens have any idea about ONG's plans. And if they did, they would feel confused by why the city or any of our local officials are supporting this ONG application. I say this given the great strides the city has made to improve and enhance the environment, livability, and desirability of Norwalk for its residents, and in particular in the scenic and historic area of East Norwalk. To me, it feels simply counterintuitive for this industrial expansion to be approved, especially in light of Norwalk's tremendous effort to be one of the greenest cities in the state. In fact, Mayor Rilling is on record in mid-March stating, quote, "I am determined to make Norwalk the greenest city in Connecticut. Addressing the threats of climate change cannot wait. It's our responsibility to take a proactive approach by implementing the steps in this sustainability and resilience plan on behalf of our children, grandchildren, and future generations. And that's exactly what we're doing," unquote. Well, I also think this is exactly what we're doing here too, when we are asking you that you reevaluate this current ONG application. We do so on behalf of future generations. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you very much, Tracy.
All right, next is Diane Lauricella. You should be able to mute yourself.
Good evening, Chair and Harbor Commission. My name is Diane Lauricella. I live at 21 Little Fox Lane. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I support a lot of what was said by the speakers that you allowed to speak. But the reason why I decided to speak is that as a former Harbor Commissioner back in the 1980s under Mayor Bill Collins, I helped write the original harbor management plan and have followed with not only pride, but also with thankful gratitude, as many on this current commission and who are senior members just in the years they've served, and also the newer members are making every effort to update and ensure that the harbor management plan is relevant for today. I am in favor of an economic strategic plan as long as all of your hard work is included and not replicated. In other words, not reinventing the wheel. The reason why I wanted to speak tonight is because you allowed people to speak about a recent decision made with Dr. Pinto's committee related to a particular zoning application. You were asked for your referral. And my read on the harbor management plan is that you do have not only the ability to, but the duty to reflect activities and how they will affect what is proposed, how what is proposed affects off-site, of course. And I don't think that your referral encompassed both the on-site impacts, both good and bad, and the off-site impacts, which could be deleterious to the harbor and the economic development of the area. Secondly, my read of the Coastal Area Management Act that the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection puts together, it appears that there is more leeway given to look at things such as air quality, drag out, things of that sort. And the referral letter dated March 7th by Dr. Pinto and the commission was very narrow in its approval. So I ask that you do reconsider and have your staff follow up and ensure that there is, because I do believe you left out a lot of consideration that you have every right to make, and data. In fact, Dr. Pinto had looked at the site in question back in 2019, requesting that there has to be dredging because of some contaminants found in the sediment right below the site in question. And that has, to my knowledge, not been done, or not been done to the satisfaction of this commission. But that was not mentioned to my, from what I recall, in the referral letter. And that would have been a chance for you as a commission to demand it before any further permitting takes place. So thank you for listening. I appreciate all the work that you all do. It's very important because the harbor is a wonderful resource for our city, and I'm glad we are paying more attention to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. Appreciate your time.
Next, we have Richard Warren.
Good evening, Commissioners. Richard Warren, speaking on behalf of ONG Industries, part of the application, the application group before you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you again, and I will try to address a couple of the concerns that have been raised tonight. We did see some letters that came through, and going in reverse order, I would like to respond to Ms. Lauricella's concern. The dredging that was sought in 2019, that permit was secured through DEP. Dredging did occur. We not only removed what was considered contaminated material from the harbor, but we at the same time performed maintenance dredging so that we could in fact reuse the bulkhead at our facility. So that dredging was accomplished to the satisfaction of DEP. That is a closed matter at the moment. You certainly can review that, but on our records, that is a closed item. With regards to safety in the harbor, I would like to comment that we certainly support the rowing that does occur in the Norwalk River. We, in fact, have a gentleman's agreement with the Norwalk River Rowing Association. They began operations at the southern end of our property and still have office space and storage of shells there. As they have grown and added their canopy in the adjacent property, they still do utilize some of the ONG property with a friendly agreement between us to maintain that. So we are aware of the concerns of safety in the river, and would of course be amenable to any conditions as far as timing, transport, activity. And I would say it's worth your consideration that, because as we represented the last time we were before you, that we in fact purchase from the same suppliers that Divine is purchasing from, it is very likely that we could not only work cooperatively when barges are at both of our berths, but we could work cooperatively in ordering materials and having deliveries, to the point that perhaps as a tug is bringing barges into one of us, they would be removing empties from the other. And it may be a, quite honestly, more efficient use of the river and the harbor for the industrial use. And if I could just comment again, we are not believing that we are looking for an expansion of our property and the use. We are looking to reactivate the approved industrial use that is either considered within approved rights or a prior non-conforming use. So I just want to point that out, that we are not looking to grow beyond what previously was permitted, was allowed, was done. And any conditions that should be put on the property as far as drag out, as far as maintenance, as far as operations on the land side, that is why we would be coming before the zoning commission. So we certainly are amenable to hearing what needs to be done in order for us to receive an approval for the appropriate use of the site. I think that satisfies my comments. I hope that's information is useful. I would also point out, I know that there was concerns in written testimony about the narrowing of the channel or the access to the federal channel. And I again want to point out to you that when ONG supported the dredging of the federal channel back in 2005, there was a realignment of the federal channel, and it did allow the movement of the channel to leave barges at the ONG berth outside of the channel line. If those dimensions have changed, there may be some shifting pro and con. And again, there was at the time a gentleman's agreement of we would certainly not in any way want to block or narrow the channel for transport of vessels that need to be moving north of us. So thank you for your consideration. Thank you for your time. There may be some other comments coming from the rest of my team. So I will quiet myself now. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate your time.
Next is Attorney Liz Succi.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Thank you very much for taking the time to revisit this matter this evening. I appreciate it. A few comments that I'd like to make in addition to what Mr. Warren has already mentioned. I do want to call, first of all, your attention to what your powers are and what your duties are as the Harbor Management Commission. Some of the items mentioned to you this evening are clearly outside of that authority. Issues such as traffic, noise, dust, air, all of those issues are among those which will be considered and vetted by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So under the City Charter, Section 69-21, your duties include to receive and review all proposals for dredging, filling, and constructing or altering any structure on, in, or contiguous to the harbor, and to make recommendations to Planning and Zoning Commission, which you've already done on March 7th. I recognize that you have a belief of continuing jurisdiction when additional information comes to you for review, and we appreciate your giving us the opportunity to respond to some of the concerns and questions. First of all, as has been mentioned, Department of Energy and Environmental Protection determined that the use is consistent with the Coastal Area Management Act as a water-dependent use. And you have also indicated that this is consistent with your harbor management plan as a water-dependent use. One speaker mentioned they were concerned that if members of the public were aware of what was going on, there would be a greater hue and cry or interest. Notice was sent to neighbors in accordance with the Zoning Commission's regulations. And as a matter of fact, the notice that was sent included others that typically would not be sent notice, because we thought as an applicant that it was important to let individuals have notice of what was pending. Applications were submitted in mid-February, so they've been on the city's website and have at least been before the Planning and Zoning Commission at least once for review. Other agencies and commissions are charged, as I said before, with various issues that have been brought to your attention, such as noise, dust, and traffic. Traffic is something that is within the aegis of the Planning and Zoning Commission and certainly not the Harbor Commission, and that will be an issue that we will have to address and the Planning and Zoning Commission will ask us about when we go to a hearing, which will likely be next month. Lastly, the aggregate that is to be brought by barge, which barges have been brought to this site before, whether it's for aggregate or for asphalt or for millings or for fuel oil in the past, that the waterborne transit of aggregate to the site from quarries elsewhere is that's a material that's necessary for small jobs, large jobs, and all construction jobs in Fairfield County. And by bringing it to the site by barge has an environmental impact, and we believe a positive one. It takes trucks off the road, which would typically be the only way that aggregate could be brought to construction sites throughout Norwalk and the surrounding communities. I don't really have much else to say. I think you vetted this application quite well earlier in March. And we're certainly happy to provide more information. As a matter of fact, if you're interested in the type of aggregate that is to be brought by barge to the site, examples of that were delivered to Mr. Kleppen, and you can go and take a look at it and see exactly what it's all about. That concludes any comments I have to make at this point, but I suspect that perhaps Mr. Oneglia of ONG may want to speak to you as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Succi. Appreciate it.
Next up, we have Brad Craighead.
Good evening. My name is Brad Craighead, and I'm a property owner at 3 Park Street. I'm also a co-founder of the Norwalk Green Association. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about the O&G application to raise our concerns directly to you. We respectfully request that you reconsider your position based upon the information that's come to light since your prior approval back in February. In fact, almost 2 months later, it's worth mentioning that the planning and zoning staff have only engaged in preliminary discussions with the applicant. As you may be aware, the O&G asphalt plant was shut about 15 years ago, around 2008. It isn't clear to me or anyone else that I can find what kind of business has been conducted by O&G over the subsequent period, nor what approvals or permits were in place before or after the operation was put to rest. In fact, our understanding is that the Planning and Zoning Commission continues to ask questions of O&G and seeks additional information regarding, for example, the scale and scope of the business that they propose. The city's asking for a business plan, information that's still forthcoming and is deemed to complete before the commission meets again and perhaps again followed by a public hearing, all along the typical timetable. All this information was sourced from a public Zoom forum, and then it was reported in Nancy on Norwalk. It's worth noting that over 25 people took the time to write their detailed concerns and objections, a community outcry without precedent, and one that people are now just hearing about. In any case, the point is that in my view, this application is not business as usual. In fact, I believe that a positioning of the O&G operation as existing from the standpoint of proposed barge activity is misleading and perhaps factually incorrect. To borrow a term that was used by a City of Norwalk legal staffer, this is not an existing use by the applicant. This is an existing non-use. To the best of my knowledge, the frequency and volume of the proposed barge activity of 10 to 12 per month is unprecedented. Furthermore, the overall waterway and its use seem to have changed substantially since O&G shut their plant in 2008. You've heard from both the Connecticut Boat Club and Maritime Rowing Club. They can attest to those points, and they are understandably very concerned about safety, with 200 to 300 rowers on the river at any point in time. They represent 2 of the 3 rowing clubs that vie for space on a year-round basis, not to mention all of the other commercial businesses and recreational boaters, as reflected across Norwalk's robust level of marine commerce. Once again, very few people know about this application. To put this into perspective, the volume of barge traffic that we're talking about would be trucked out through Norwalk's geographic center. It's estimated by O&G officials to be 720 triaxles a month. That's almost 10,000 trucks going up Wall Street, East Avenue, Park Street every year. I simply don't understand why Norwalk would even consider facilitating a Stamford and Bridgeport-based business that destroys the quality of life for its citizens and taxpayers. Getting trucks off the road and through Norwalk's heartland is exactly what we don't want to do. And bringing them up through Norwalk Center to destroy it is just unacceptable. My apologies for going into this level of detail, but I believe you can now see why we have such grave concerns about the application and its consequential impact upon Norwalk's future. Thank you for your time and consideration of this important matter.
Thank you, Mr. Craighead.
And the last hand we have raised for now is Matt Oneglia. So if anyone else would like to contribute to public comment, please use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen.
Hi there. Thank you for taking the time to allow us to speak. This is Matt Oneglia from O&G. I don't have much to comment on. I reiterate what Mr. Warren and Attorney Sutchie said, but I did want to address a couple things that, in no particular order, just going through some of the notes. with respect to the walk bridge construction activity, we participate and receive weekly updates as to the ongoings of that construction project. We also participate in the decision to make the bridge an operable bridge as opposed to a fixed bridge. We haven't really needed to comment to date because we've not had any barge traffic or activity at this time. And then, going on with respect to that, this really is an application for waterborne transport of materials. It has nothing to do with the, existing of the asphalt plant which exists on the property and has existed on the property. They're separate items from our standpoint. And, with respect to sort of the environmental comments as well, again, I just want to reiterate that at present, there is no quarry or property that exists within Fairfield County where you can get construction and aggregate material, whether it be rock, stone, sand, etc. So at present, everything that comes to Norwalk comes via truck, not just on the edges of Norwalk, but through the city center. So it's our aim to reduce that congestion on 95 with the amount of truck traffic. And I think that there's a lot of misleading information out there, some of which you've heard tonight, in terms of the number of truck traffic and how that gets extrapolated to 10,000 triaxle trucks. In addition, the Norwalk Green website has some misleading information as to the unloading and process. And I think if you look at what it currently exists directly across from the harbor from our facility with Divine Brothers, that is an identical operation to what we exist, or what we propose. And Mr. Warren touched upon that already this evening in terms of an efficiency from barge standpoint and bringing material in. So again, thank you for the time this evening. That is all I have for now.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate your time.
And that was the last hand raise that we had.
Fantastic. So that will bring us to the end of public comment. Next item is the approval of minutes. Everyone has received minutes, am I correct? Is there a motion? Then?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Is there a second?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are accepted. Application Review Committee, Dr. Pinto.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Chairman Kibbe. The first and basically the only item that we have to discuss is that of 72 Shorefront Park, which is not a resubmission, but it's a new information has come to light with regard to this particular application. The DEP has issued the license, and this is under license number 202-205-961. And the permit involved in installation of a 4 by 75-foot piling supported timber pier and a 3 foot by 40 foot aluminum ramp and an 8 foot by 20 foot timber floating dock. And what the owner would like to do, and they're going to petition and discuss that. I think Mr. Hiltz is here with us this afternoon to discuss the interest that Mr. Camilo Tomas has with regard to what he would like to do is to have his permit modified to allow for both the ramp and the floating dock to remain in place throughout the year. This represents permit item 4 of the terms and conditions which were stated to Mr. Tomas with regard to the ramp and float removal. And according to the recommendations in that permit, the licensee shall remove the ramp and float authorized herein no later than November 15th of any calendar year, and shall not install such ramp and float before April 15th of any calendar year. Upon removal of the ramp and float authorized herein, the licensee shall store such structures at an upland location landward of the coastal jurisdiction line and outside of the tidal wetlands. So that is what's currently in that permit, and I guess Mr. Hiltz will be here to discuss the different proposal that the owner would like to make to the DEP and perhaps to us as well, and the Norwalk Shellfish Commission.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to discuss this. I appreciate it. And again, I haven't submitted anything formally. I just wanted to initiate a discussion with your commission, the Shellfish Commission, and then obviously the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection regarding this. Mr. Tomas, has an authorized pier ramp and floating dock. The floating dock itself is suspended above the substrate by means of the piling supported float stop system. If you're familiar with the plans, there's a band of Spartina alterniflora that comes approximately 4 feet towards the landwardmost pilings anchoring the floating dock. What we're considering is the following: is that leaving the ramp in place, that ramp, if just barring any discussion of the floating dock itself, but if the ramp were simply hung during the off-season months, the extension of that ramp into the area beyond the tidal wetlands would still be within the 10-foot setback that's required for any harvesting of shellfish. So it wouldn't impact, the ability to do so. Beyond that, the float itself, by means of being suspended above the substrate, if we all think back to former days in which, prior to the requirement for the first 6 inches, then 12 inches, and now 18 inches of clearance beneath the floating docks, then impacts to the, underlying benthos. We've eliminated that impact substantially simply by means of installing the float stops. So there's really no impact to the benthos, as a result of the floating dock's presence now. And obviously, even if the floating dock were to be removed, you couldn't, harvest shellfish from the area, occupied by the floating dock by virtue of the fact that the float stop system still remains. So given those two, considerations, we feel it's pretty much unnecessary for the, to remove these, these items each and every year and to reinstall them. There isn't a clear ecological benefit. There isn't a clear, benefit for the harvesting of any shellfish, which again, being a seed oyster area would have to be done by hand. So it's not some place where you can power dredge. And beyond that, quite frankly, it's a considerable expense on the part of the, the homeowner to each year, pay to have the float and the ramp removed, stored, and then reinstalled. So it becomes, somewhat of an economic consideration as well. So that's why we're here today, to just talk this, engage your, receptiveness, and answer any questions you may have.
Anyone like to make comment? Again, Mr. Hiltz, I thank you very much for the presentation and discussion. But again, one of the main concerns that we have as a commission is to work very closely with our sister commission, that is the Shellfish Commission, with regard to their point of view on this. I know it's not just simply the dock in place in order to concerned with removal or harvesting shellfish in that area, but also concerned for the substrate that is located on top of the, and I agree, I'm not sure if any work has been done to determine what the drawback would be if a dock is left in place or dock is removed. So I don't have that information certainly available. The other thing too is that this is part of the conditions that we have always set forward for other docks in the area too. So I'm just concerned that the other docks in the area being the same, may have the same problem, would be requesting to have their docks left in place. So we have always been consistent with our harbor management and harbor management plan with regard to the removal of docks in a timely manner for just that purpose during that season of April I think it's, no, I'm sorry, from November to April of the calendar year. And I certainly like to hear from perhaps our shellfish. I think Mr. Bardish is not here, but we have Mr. Johnson here. Did you review that application?
Yes. Which one is it? I lost you and I had to come back on. Which one is that?
72 Shorefront Park.
Oh, we went down and saw it. And Steve and I both said, as long as they're above the grass, farther out, and there's stops on their floats, because there's no water at low tide there at all. As a matter of fact, maybe 2 or 3 feet at high tide. So I forgot who else we were with, but we didn't find any problem with what they were doing.
So as far as the commission,
There was a dock there already before.
yeah, no, but as far as the Shellfish Commission is concerned, that you don't have any issues with regard to substrate or harvesting of shellfish if that dock is left in place there.
I think he
Dock
missed,
part, the dock should be lifted out, but the float should be lifted out. The dock that that goes out, we're fine with that as long as, they're just over the, I guess you call it eelgrass, whatever it is.
I think Pete missed the part, the request that's before us, Pete, is that they want to leave it in throughout the winter. Our approval was based on them removing it from November to April.
Yeah, the dock and the ramp.
The dock and the ramp, yes, and the homeowner's asking for relief from that. They want it waived.
No, we said it's got to be removed. We've said that already.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Peter, you saying that the ramp can remain, but the
Nope,
dock itself?
The ramp and the dock have to be removed.
Okay,
Just like if you went and took a look down there, the dock to the right of it, they removed their ramp and their dock and their float. Gets removed.
okay, understood.
I don't know that there's a dock to the right of that, Mr. Johnson.
Well, not next door, but if you look down a little farther. You know what I'm saying? It's like 2 or 3 houses down, there's a dock.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that, but
Again,
But it's in our thing anyways, that anywhere the docks have to be pulled and the floats. I mean, the floats and the ramps have to be pulled.
Mr. Hiltz, again, as a point of information, would you have to then reapply since you're modifying a current permit that has already been in place, that you'd have to reapply again for
it's not clear, Doc. This came about, just in an informal discussion with Catherine Becker at Deep. And again, she was basically pointing out that the requirement is ramp and float removal, which was done. But, I brought up the points that I presented tonight, i.e., the extension of the ramp into an area that is basically, for lack of a better term, off limits to harvesting because it's in close proximity to the tidal wetland grasses. And then the inability to harvest in the area, occupied by the float stop system, because obviously there's a physical impediment to doing so.
Well, as I said, going back to our original comments and recommendations, and I'll just do this for our commission members, perhaps who were not present at the time that this our comments and recommendations were made. This is going back to 2021. And again, as we pointed out, that the proposed work will affect natural shellfish resources, and in the Norwalk Shellfish Commission will submit a statement of comments and recommendations intended to mitigate these impacts. And as we point out, that those comments and recommendations shall be addressed by the applicant and the DEP in an application review process. And then again, as we pointed out, according to our previous recommendations on similar docks in that particular area. And that is the aluminum ramp and the floating dock will require winter removal, as we pointed out. That was your item 4, which you want to rescind. Let's see, number 3, this is, it is a policy of the Norwalk Harbor Management Commission that an applicant provide the Norwalk Harbor Management Commission with an as-built survey following the completion of any permitted construction. And as it pointed out again, the applicant should notify the harbor master of any use of any vessels, water-based equipment needed to undertake the proposed project. Now, I suppose this dock has already been built and is already in place. So
Exactly.
all those requirements. So
Right.
the only aspect that is you're asking for to comment on is that item 4 that's already in place in the permit.
Mhm.
Now, I don't, as I said, I don't know if, since you have to modify an existing permit, I don't know from the DEP standpoint whether you have to reapply. That was
I don't know either, to be honest with you. Yeah, it hasn't progressed to that level yet, John.
So because that's not enough to sort of act on an application. As I said, this is what we would have to look at or review again. As far as reviewing an application as new information comes forward. And what I would recommend is that we will abide by the Shellfish Commission's responsibilities in protecting the shellfish in Norwalk Harbor by doing exactly what the original permit had stated, and that is to have the dock and the ramp removed during that interim of November to April.
All right, that I understand, it's, I can't speak for the owner, obviously, because he's not in attendance, but I will go back to him with your comments and discuss the matter further. And if he wishes to pursue it further, I guess we'll be back before you in some capacity. But for now, I think, we've hashed it out and had our discussion, and the issues, our rationale, we know your policies and the commission's standing, and that's fine. I would like to hear from Steve Bartusch at some point, but I can follow up with him individually. So it's
Well, he's been made aware of the application, and I think.
Yes. Yeah, I copied him on the same transmission I sent to your commission. So,
Steve and I both went out.
yeah,
I forget who else went with us. We went out and looked at it, and we took a rough measurement walking down the one that all broken down and everything.
Right.
So
And I'll just interject that I really don't have a lot of sympathy in terms of an economic hardship. In the long run, having the dock stored during the winter will probably save it from being destroyed in one of these storms. There's dozens and dozens of docks in Darien, Norwalk that are stored every winter, and I know quite well a person who does this for a living, and they were repairing. They were pulling docks and ramps out of the water after the storm we had 3 weeks ago, which wasn't even a particularly bad one. I mean, 50 knot winds, but that happens all winter long. And there's lots of people who are very sorry they didn't either have their docks put in too soon or don't store them at all, because they did, especially, and this is a fairly exposed one. You get a good southeasterly blow and the guy would lose his dock, and it would probably tear up the bottom as it got busted up, with breaking off the floats and everything else. So that's my comment on that.
Well,
I'd like to comment comment as well that on further what Chris is saying, any of these docks that are left in position, should they get loose, they're potential for huge property damage for a dock that breaks away or a gangway that ends up on the bottom. So there's a real benefit not only to the property owner but to the other people around the harbor to have that those docks secured and away for the winter.
Hence the reason for our recommendation as far as our policy is concerned. Thank you.
That's a valid concern, and I appreciate that.
Well, since there's no application before us, John, as I said, those are our comments that we have. You can bring that back to Mr. Tomas and discuss that with Deep. And I don't know from Deep's perspective of whether a new application would have to be submitted for that arrangement.
Very good. All right. Well, I will keep you in the loop regarding any future developments, and we'll take it from there.
All right. No, John, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you all for your time, and have a great night.
Good night, John.
John.
All right, the other item, Alan, that we had, I should say, Mr. Kibbe and Chairman, we wanted to discuss again, based on new information that's come forward, some of the aspects of that ONG project. And again, the concern that the commission certainly has is the narrowing of the channel in that area. If there are more than one barge, there's more than one barge on either side of the harbor. That includes Divine Brothers and ONG. And the original application that was submitted to us by ONG pointed out that the barge width would be 35 foot and I think 142 foot in length. Now, the fact being is that Divine Brothers, and I guess Buchanan is the barge company who brings barges up there. Divine Brothers usually has a 50 foot, was it now? So 60 foot width barge up there. 50 to 60 foot width barge. Now, having barges of that size up in that area is going to impede quite greatly and narrow the channel. Yeah.
If you don't mind, just a few points, not about the merits of this now. I'm assuming that this will be taken up at a future meeting, but just some background information. In a way, we're revisiting history here with respect to the barge traffic, because when we met with the Corps of Engineers in 1997 to request that they start a planning project to dredge the federal channel, one of the first issues that was raised was the issue of encroaching barges in the channel upstream, and that was worked out after many years. And it led to many meetings in Washington, D.C. and Hartford to achieve realignment of the channel through the 2007 Water Resources Development Act. And that narrowed the channel up there. Some of the channel was reduced in the area of ONG and Divine for the purpose of getting barges out of the channel, but while still maintaining access for the Norwalk Boat Club. So we agreed to pursue that. John, let me just finish this for a minute. And the Corps then agreed for the dredging project. So millions of dollars of federal money was allocated for 3 phases of the dredging project. And the first was the upper harbor to a depth of 10 feet. And that was for the purpose of supporting marine commercial, maritime commerce, the delivery of aggregate material, and also for the operation of the asphalt plant. And so that took place in 2005. We have the amount of funds that were allocated for that. But there was an agreement that there was an issue of barges encroaching into the channel. If that's still an issue, apparently, that has to be worked out so that there isn't an encroachment of the remaining 40-foot width. Another thing that I might mention is the attorney for ONG talked about the authorities of the Harbor Management Commission with respect to review of this. But one thing that's very clear is the Harbor Commission has authority to review and comment on proposals affecting the harbor that are provided to planning and zoning. And when we review that, we can consider that in addition to the policies of the plan that talk about protecting and encouraging water-dependent uses, there is also a policy about protecting the quality of life in shorefront residential areas. So all that has to be balanced. And also there was comments that the commission approved this. The commission didn't approve it. The commission found it consistent with the harbor management plan, the policies affecting water-dependent uses, and this is a water-dependent use, and it was properly mentioned that DEEP has identified this as a water-dependent use that has priority in the coastal management.
Marine industrial area.
There are a number of matters that we have to discuss when this is brought up again. But prominent in my mind is the issue of barge encroachment in the channel, and how do we maintain that? And if the channel is encroached, how do we enforce that? And one thing that we have to look at, and we have, are the permits that have been issued to Divine and to ONG, and whether they say anything about encroaching in the channel, which apparently they don't. And so that takes the enforcement out of the hands of DEEP, and it redirects it to the harbor master. And then the Corps of Engineers also has considerations about this. So to take this up again, this is all part of the background. But again, some of us spent years working on the dredging project, and that was millions of dollars for the purpose of supporting marine commerce and dredging that channel to minus 10 feet.
Right. And I think what
Jeff,
we're
I
all
think,
getting
Jeff,
to-
excuse me,
Yes.
I value the history behind this, but I don't think there's we can really move this forward at all at this point in the discussion. These are all future discussion items
Right, I'd like to
that go with
put
this.
on the table for a future discussion.
And I don't think that we can really decide anything from
No,
talking about this.
that's correct. And
There's a lot of
but I think
input from a lot of areas that needs to come forward. So
that's correct. But I think it should.
I'd like this to be tabled till a more appropriate time if we could.
Oh, yes, I wasn't suggesting we debate.
We
and
debate or
make
do
a
anything
decision
tonight, yeah.
But at the time that the commission does, and I think it is reasonable to consider this again, because when we did look at this the first time, we didn't have the input from many of the people who are spoke tonight. And we also didn't understand the extent of the potential encroachment into the channel and blocking the access, potentially blocking the access from the Norwalk Boat Club.
Yeah.
So that's just background to the time when the commission brings this up again.
But it's not only just background, but we realize again why we have industry up in that area right there. We started this and we try to encourage barge traffic in that area, mainly to keep us on the Federal Navigation Project. Because if barge traffic was eliminated in that area, then the federal government would remove us from the Federal Navigation Project, and we would not be eligible for funding. Obviously, that's come to
And
the
there's
end.
also the issue that.
I'd really like Jeff and John, I'd really like to move on from this because this is
All right,
really a
so
discussion that
we'll table this.
it's not on our agenda tonight, and
table
the
this
public
item
has
for
left.
If you don't,
We really don't need to debate this right now, and I think a lot of these are really discussions that come up further along the line. We've acted with our purview on this, and there's a lot of other entities that have to weigh in, like planning and zoning and so on and so forth. So I think there'll be an appropriate time. It would be helpful if you've mentioned to me, John, that there's an Army Corps of Engineers arrangement for the
408 permit
barges in the channel and both entities co-using the river. So it would be great if we could dig that out and look at that, because presumably that's still in force.
Yeah.
And as Mr. Warren said, some of these agreements were gentlemen's agreements at the time.
I understand that, Jeff.
So
right.
So Alan,
It's settled. It's settled business, people. We have no motion on the floor, and we have the referral by planning and zoning has been complete. So we really have we don't even have ground to re-examine it.
Correct. Thanks, Chris.
Well, I'm not sure about that, Chris.
Well, if there's new information and all of it, everything Jeff brought up, we discussed in the last review. So I've heard no new information other than opinions.
Correct.
So let's move on. We've already spent an hour on this.
I want to argue with you now, Chris, but the new information indicated that a barge, the width of a barge is going to be 35 foot. And we know that that's not the case now. That's new information as far as I'm concerned.
But you told me there's an agreement in place, or maybe a gentleman's agreement that sort of solves that. So I think we need to close this item now and move on.
No problem.
Thank you, John.
All right, that's it for application review.
Thank you, Dr. P. I'll try to be brief with my oh, I'm sorry. Amelia, do we have any correspondence?
Nope, the only correspondence were the emails this week that were forwarded to all of you.
Has everyone received those emails? I wanted to be sure everybody had gotten all the correspondence we had from all the people who spoke this evening.
Correct. Yeah, I did.
Couple of observations. One is I'll be as quick as I can, but this is all important to me. The is everything you say is very important to me. Document storage is kind of a problem for us getting to historic documents and things like we're talking about this Army Corps of Engineer agreement and all. I began some conversations with the city about storage of documents with access to very different commissions that could be secured, and commissioners can get a password when they become a commissioner, and their password becomes inactive once they stop being a commissioner. So there's a lot of things we can investigate for having really good data storage for drawings and things like that we can all access on our own time when we want to study something or spend more time. So I think that will help our operation be more efficient. Tonight, are waiting for everybody to get online to have a quorum reminds me that we have a vacancy on the commission, and if people have friends they'd like to encourage to join us, I would be happy to push that along. Just let me know. The mayor is the appointing authority. I would appreciate it if there's you tell me if you have a candidate so that I can put some pressure on the mayor's office just to move that along. So that's the vacancy situation. I'd like to give Chris White some kudos, which he is reserved on the publication of the In Our Wake and Off Our Bow, which is our spring newsletter, which has been printed, will be distributed. Amelia, I'll pick up, and thank you, Chris. It's very well done. It's already been distributed to the Norwalk Harbor mooring holders electronically. It will be distributed to our transient visitors who've come to see us on Dockwah, so they will get a little bit of update on what's going on in Norwalk. So it's a really exciting thing and a landmark for us to get this together. And Chris is really the operating force there. So thanks a lot, Chris. I really appreciate all the time you've put in this. I'm hitting the pavement tomorrow with the printed copies and going restaurant to restaurant and business to business around the harbor and dropping these off and getting them on the various counters. So I'm just very excited about it.
Thank you. Let's start up on summer.
What's that?
We'll start on summer next.
That's right. Please get your thoughts together. And maybe we could have like Pinto's Corner every month or something like that, or every season, or
yeah, whatever we want.
The other thing I'd like to just congratulate Chris on is his efforts to get us a public hearing on it's the Walk Bridge project, but it really is the Eversource crossing of those power cables. And I did attend a meeting. Chris, do you want to talk about this in your time, or do you want me to do this?
No, you can go ahead. I've been out of town for the last 2.5 weeks, so I just got back today. So I've been a little out of the loop on that stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you're back for the meeting. So what was said? These are tentative dates now, but what the DEEP hearing officer is setting up is a site meeting for May 22nd. On site to look at the situation there. The people at the meeting, interestingly enough, from DEEP said, well, there's nothing to meet about because it's underwater, so you can't see anything. But they were the DEEP folks held to their guns about having a site visit. So that will likely be May 22nd. The hearing will likely be May 29th. There'll be a June 5th deadline for submission of public comment, and June 6th will be an evidentiary hearing as it is proposed right now. And I'll keep you abreast of any changes to that, but that was what was discussed and decided that meeting I attended.
Well, I was, excuse me,
yeah.
If you go to 4 Point Street, just before the bridge, you can see where they're working for the tower to go underground in that parking lot. And they're digging all the way from, if you look at it, they're putting plates down, getting ready to run the conduit and stuff from the 4 Point Bridge, train bridge, right next to that, you'll see it, up to the park. They've been digging
Again, the piece that really came before the Harbor Commission is the underwater bit. So that's, I doubt they're going to change that part of their route at this point. But I think it's important that we have an understanding about what the happens to these cables going under our facilities and who's going to be responsible for moving them or adjusting them or doing anything. Is that part of Norwalk develops, as I think it is going to. So I think that's the thing, is what happens at the crossing, how the city is protected against costs from the crossing.
Right.
There are ways that the crossing could be considerably deeper, so that there's less to worry about with those cables being there. Obviously, the wires have to get across the river somehow.
Right.
But we
The
want
other thing
to
is,
minimize
I've talked to some of these guys that do putting in poles and docks and everything else, and they said if there's cables there, they won't even go near it.
Well, that's true, and I know that my feeling is that Eversource or anybody in their position would say, sure, we'll be, you want to move those cables, we'll be down there in 2 hours to work with your engineer and show you how to do it. And my experience in those kinds of things in large public work projects that I've been involved in is that that will never happen. If you don't get it right now, it will all be on the city to pay for it, and at the expense of some of these things, the city will never have money to pay for it, because the costs of moving these things once they're there is huge. So
that's not just the moving, it's the work that's being done. God forbid something does happen, they should be responsible for anything.
Really, we need to do the best we can to protect ourselves.
I agree
on all that, so that we're not unable to adjust our facility if we want to move that launch ramp somewhere, to be told right now it's, oh yeah, well, we'd be glad to help you, but 2 years from now they'll say, oh yeah, we'll be down in 2 years to talk to you, and it just won't happen. And so we want to find a plan that gives us real autonomy for doing what we want to do without having to ask Mother May I every time we need to do anything.
Yeah, and the other thing is, you got to make sure that it follows whenever this company changes. They've changed three times. So
yes, that's right. It has to apply to their successors too. And that's not really always clear, that it it's once when it's gone, when somebody goes, whether their obligations go forward with them. So that's that. We had the Strategic Harbor Steering Committee. We had our first meeting, which was very brief, really to discuss just what the game plan was. Amelia, the one thing that I don't have from that is a list of the people on the committee. All the correspondence was blind CC'd, so that all I have is my own name at the head of the communication. So it would be helpful to have a list and a contact list, at least for me, and the commissioners, so I know who the commissioners are who are on that committee.
Yeah, definitely. Someone had pointed out that there's a web page for the steering committee to access the Zoom links to watch. And the members are usually posted there. So I've also asked the mayor's office if they can include the names there, and I can send a list as well.
Thanks. Appreciate it. So that is the end of my really newsy report. Do you have any questions or?
Yeah, Alan, I think it should be made quite plain to the steering committee about the overlap, and there's quite a substantial overlap with regard to what they plan in that steering committee to what we already have done or we are doing with our harbor management plan. So I think
this is not a harbor management plan. It's not. It's not in conflict with the harbor management document.
It is when they state that they're going to recommend where moorings are placed and recommend fees. That's left up to the Harbor Commission. And there are other issues that were brought out in this overview that they submitted to, I don't know if it's the Norwalk Hour, that certainly that's in the purview of the Norwalk Harbor Management Commission, not the planning, not the Economic Development Group. So, and I think since you're on that commission, I think you should be made aware of what is in the harbor management plan and whether there's going to be excessive redundancy, which I have a feeling that there is going to be as far as some of the scope of that project. And I think as
They're two completely different documents, John.
well,
And
I should hold in reservation as far as that's concerned, but that's not what I read.
there is
yeah,
there is substantial representation from the Harbor Commission on this committee.
And I'd like those commissioners that are on that committee to be well aware of what is in the purview of the harbor management plan and what is in the purview of what this strategic plan is all
Yeah,
about.
and
There's
we're
attempt
aware
to-
of that, and if they can make recommendations for us to do things that are within our purview. This is a consultant making recommendations.
Right.
It's not it's not a regulation document. It's not an enforcement document. It's not even a management plan. So,
all right.
I'm interested to hear what they have to say, first and foremost, to
Right.
get the understanding of what their background is, what their focus is, and see if there is any juxtaposition about what you're specifically talking about, John, because that's one of my concerns. It seemed like the street end project was more the focus than anything else in
Yes,
the
that's what
20
it originally, that was the original plan.
right.
But
Yeah.
there are sections in Norwalk that are not being considered, such as Manresa Island and a few other places that are considered in this whole.
Right.
So-called
So
37%.
so for everybody's information, this was the consultant has been selected, but they're not on board yet. So the consultant was not part of this meeting. It was planning and zoning and the steering committee, and it was basically an orientation meeting for people who are new to this whole strategic plan.
Right.
And I think, John, that the Harbor Commission is well represented there as well.
Yeah.
It's not a
But like I said, one thing I found difficult to understand is the excessive overlap. If there's an overlap,
Sure.
I have a certain issue with that because we're paying these people to do a redundant set of work that we have already got in place or we are working on at the current time. Yeah.
my point of view is in this situation always is the more information, the merrier. The more qualified information we have from the outside consultants and people's experience to help guide us and help us make decisions is very important.
Right.
The more
We have
heads,
so
the
many,
merrier.
we have so many people on the steering committee, we almost have a quorum.
Yeah, that's right. So
Um,
I don't think there's,
and
I don't really worry about this. So, Matt, you're on that committee, aren't you?
correct.
That was there. Yeah, Matt, you can, I looked up the company's website and it's basically, it's two civil engineers and their staff that are doing this. So this isn't, and there's also one person has engineering and architecture background, one of the principals. So they seem well qualified. I'm excited that they're engineers because then we're more likely to get, practical usable, ideas and not
So,
just.
so you speak their language, Chris, right?
Yeah, they speak my language and yes, exactly.
Okay.
So
No.
hopefully we'll get workable information and ideas and not just fairy tales,
Were you able to see if they had any past similar projects, or I was trying to find that and I couldn't.
Oh, I don't have that on top of my head, but they've got a significant resume, the same as the other competitor that was Util, who's done a tremendous amount of work for the city on the South Norwalk development and the waterfront development there. And I'm pleased that we have a different player that's kind of helping us look at that differently, because I was really going to be disappointed if we had the same consultant just moving on to make the waterfront agree with what they planned for the land, and there needs to be a separate look at what's going on. And
completely agree with it. And I think having those differing potential views and that's what we're looking for, is the outcome, to see what the potential here is, not what someone 20 years ago said this is what it's going to be and here's the plan to get there. I think I'm just looking to get an understanding of the multitude of issues that need to be under this giant umbrella. And to your point before, John, Manresa is one of them, ONG is one of them, barge traffic, usability,
Right.
Residents, there's multiple different aspects that I'm hoping that this is going to be, the culmination of all that, not just one or two little specific areas. So That's what I'm hoping to get out of it, or at least drive it to continue to look at it that way.
No, thank you, man. No, I appreciate that. Appreciate your comments.
I think I look at it as being an exciting opportunity to get more information about ourselves. And I think that when you get some independent point of view, that's a good thing. In terms of full disclosure, one of the consultants is a former planning and zoning employee here in Norwalk. That could be good or bad, but she's seems to be knowledgeable, a good resume, and she's been a rower on the river. So I think that's a good firsthand experience to have. That a consultant, please, knows what goes on in the Norwalk River.
Man, I like to see people like Norm Bloom and Gary and a couple others that were on the committee as well, talking about firsthand cardinal knowledge of,
Exactly.
usability and, marine usage versus residential and that blend. I think that's really
Yes, yeah, I absolutely agree. Couldn't agree with you more.
All right. I'm all set with this. I'm ready to move on. Harbour Master Lavallo, are you prepared to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be quick. Obviously the season's kicking off. I've been following up with mooring holders. We're pretty much everyone's paid up. There's 113 mooring holders that paid for within the harbor. Now just sending out electronic emails of the upkeep on their inspections. I got a date next week with Norm Edwards. We're going to go out and shuffle around some moorings out by the East Channel, so we can make maybe more room for a couple of transit moorings. There's a couple mooring holders that sold their boats, so we're going to maybe jockey some stuff around to make some room. And then the email I sent out the other day, the Harbor Master boat's out of service. Seems to be some engine issues. Until that's diagnosed, I'll get back to you. That's it.
Any questions for Bruce? Thank you, Harbour Master. Mr. Stedman, any comment from the
Sorry, I got a
consultant?
question with Bruce.
Oh.
Bruce, I was talking to Marine Police and they said that the boat needed to be pulled. It hasn't been pulled it's over a year.
What's that, Pete? What do you mean? The boat's pulled?
It is pulled.
Yeah.
Is All Seasons doing it?
No, I'm having Billy Landon take a look at it.
Oh, because All Seasons been maintaining that for the shellfish and harbor.
Yeah, they maintained it last was in 21.
Yeah.
Simple maintenance, filters, checking the oil, zincs, all that stuff I was doing. But
yeah, it should go at least once a year for them to go through it. Grandchildren just ran in.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Pete. Mr. Stedman?
I do have a few things I would like to say, beginning with the Eversource status conference. And in my opinion, I don't think we should expect any sort of critical review or questioning between DEEP and Eversource, because the two parties to this, and the two parties to the hearing are Eversource and DEEP. Eversource wants the permit and DEEP wants to give them the permit. And the discussion was quite interesting, beginning when the Eversource attorney introduced himself. And of course, he was a former DEEP attorney and a former DEEP hearing officer. And then the discussion went very quickly and included the very interesting, as Alan, you mentioned, when there was a discussion of the site visit, the DEEP attorney said, we were not thinking about that because no one can see the route, it's underwater, which I think that goes down in history as an unforgettable comment. So our hope, I think, is
unforgettable comment.
Yeah, an unforgettable comment is to
ridiculous
put into the public record the concerns that the commission has and to document that the commission is looking for to support the public interest. And that has to do with, in my opinion, the future impact on the city's ability to repair, maintain, and replace the visitors dock and the boat launching ramp. And just as we said before, DEEP has in its draft permit a condition requiring Eversource to post a $700,000+ bond to cover any inadvertent spills from the drilling fluid. The Corps of Engineers will have a condition that if this affects the maintenance of the harbor, which it won't, the channel, but it's just a standard condition, Eversource moves the cable. Now, why anybody would think it's illogical to think that there should be a condition that if the city has an added expense, Eversource pays for it. And that actually is a topic that was brought up in the public hearing before the Common Council that we attended back in 2018. There was to be a statement that was prepared to document, I don't know what the word is, documenting or testifying to or attesting to that the city's interests would be protected in the future use of the dock. That, in my understanding, was never done. It was just a statement that Eversource made. So those are things that I think would want to bring up in the public hearing. And again, also the public hearing officer from DEEP is the same hearing officer that was the hearing officer for the Walk Bridge public hearing.
Captain Reiser, yeah, Ms. Reiser.
That her statement was the Harbor Commission has no special standing, and referred to the Cohen versus DEEP case in Greenwich. That the harbor master's comments are no different than the general public. So I think if we're talking about Harbor Commission, that when we're talking about updating the harbor management plan or working on the harbor management plan, the most significant thing is dealing with that matter of authority. Or else you could say, what's the point in even having a plan if the commission has no authority? So that's my thought. And then we're working on the compilation of statements to submit as part of the public hearing process. The other topic, and I don't know if Chris is going to.
Sorry, Jeff. Which public hearing for the cable crossing?
Yes.
Okay.
So there would be testimony, just like we did for the Walk Bridge, and then there would have to be a statement of written comments. But it was so interesting when they talked about the scheduling of these dates, and the hearing officer would mention one date, and the DEP attorney would say, "Oh, we can do it sooner. We've already talked about that." So it's clear that there's no, in my opinion, there's not going to be any critical discussion. And initially, when we talked with DEEP about it, they were interested in the effect on the visitors dock because it's a permitted public access facility that's supported or encouraged by the Coastal Management Act. So there was some discussion that DEEP might be able to protect the city's interests, but now apparently that's something else. So that's my comments on that. The Veterans Park Marina and the application for funding from the Connecticut Port Authority.
He's coming down.
But so I talked with Mr. Stanton Engineering today, and the opinion of probable cost is $4 million, which the Port Authority has told us we're not going to get $4 million, but we should apply for that total amount. And so this afternoon, I was fortunate. I was in Old Saybrook, and I met with the Port Authority director and also the finance director, who are supportive of this project. We're trying to work out that they would visit Norwalk to take a look at the site, and we could talk with them about it. So we're trying to set that up. The date that they have is May 2nd in the afternoon. And actually, that's next Thursday, which would be an opportunity for them to stop by. So we're working on that. But we do have a chance.
Is that you and John are going to work on that, or is there who's going to meet with these?
Well, whoever, and I talked with Mr. Stanton today, so it's not that we want to have a big group to overwhelm them, but he would meet, probably Alan or somebody representing the commission should meet with us, and then he would get the Parks and Rec to allow parking and for us to get into that facility. So that's being worked on for next Tuesday afternoon. And the grant applications are due again on July 1st. But they were quite supportive.
Just so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, but both Mr. Hammond and Ms. Haynes were quite supportive of, of course, for this project to be submitted for funding. But there's going to be need to get more funds than the Port Authority can provide, because they have authorization statewide for $5 million. So they're not likely to give Norwalk 4 million and nothing to anybody else. So
Unless we're the only application.
unless, yeah, but that's not.
That's not gonna happen.
That's not gonna happen.
Jeff, yeah, we need to have some good representation there. I look at my calendar and see what time of the day?
We haven't figured that out yet, but there's a
Okay.
meeting that they have in Stanford at 11 a.m. And so after that meeting, we talked about driving up to Norwalk. So that would be probably early afternoon, maybe around 1 o'clock. But we haven't confirmed that yet.
And everybody, while we were on that subject, just to more information in everybody's mind, the city or Mr. Stanton has promised me his firstborn child that they will provide for the facility we need for the mooring fields for landing and unloading, and that they will redesign the dock space so there's a wider finger, if you will, to the south, so that we have a better place to land boats and get on and off. So that's on a handshake and being recorded. So I expect that will happen, but they don't want to change their drawings right now.
But that won't affect the grant application and
No.
it's being asked for. And mentioned to the Port Authority that the city has received its deep permit. And in fact, today the city, I guess, filed that on the land records as they're supposed to. And they're waiting for the Corps of Engineers permit because the public comment period, Mr. Stanton said, for that comments on that expired, I don't know, last week or April 15th. So they'll have all the permits in place. So that seems to be positive. We also talked about the Port Authority, since these grants are for projects that are consistent with the harbor management plan, as we know, but also that are open to the general public. And so I confirm that this is, according to the Corps of Engineers, this facility is open to all on equal terms, which means that there's no distinction between residents and non-residents in applying for slips. So I'll hurry up. The next topic is the Norwalk River Watershed Initiative, which some of us attended the meeting last week. The Connecticut Sea Grant has secured funds to update the watershed-based plan for the Norwalk River watershed. And Sea Grant is going to retain a consultant. And actually the Watershed Initiative Group will be providing some oversight and guidance to it. So I think that this representative of this commission has always been a representative of the Watershed Initiative. And when the first plan was prepared many years ago, we helped prepare it. So that's something that's in the works, and that will address such things as resiliency, which some people think is not being addressed properly now. And then the USGS, you know, that their instruments monitoring water conditions at the Maritime Aquarium and Cove Marina. I mentioned that last month. So they finished their data collection. Now they're seeking additional funding from DEEP to enable them to put together a summary report of what they've put together. And I was hoping that maybe if the opportunity arises, this commission would support, you know, that preparation of a summary report, so we can understand what they accomplished and what the story of what can be told based on their data collection.
Yeah, it seems like the work is a little bit useless if there's no summary report. I mean, that's
well, they have the data. They're doing this for DEEP. So DEEP can use the data for its purposes, for developing this model for nutrient loading and so forth. But the public doesn't understand, you know, it doesn't have a means of understanding what this all means. So yes, that's what they're requesting, not just to give the data to DEEP, but to be able to put something together that the public will be a benefit to public.
Chris, could that be something that we could do for our next newsletter?
Yeah,
absolutely.
For newsletter stuff, you just send me anything and everything you got, and we'll get it all included.
Because I think it's something we want to support. I don't know that we have any money to give, but I think it's certainly something that we're
that we could
get behind.
Get behind the request to DEEP and say that the commission, if it's the sense of the commission, is supportive of being able to take that data and put it into a report that's accessible to the public and will educate the public and that we have knowledge of what's going on. That's my, that was discussed at the Watershed Initiative meeting too.
It's a good topic for a next newsletter.
But thank you. That's my long-winded report.
Any questions for Jeff? Chris?
Yeah, I going back to the Eversource thing, and I'm kind of taking it back. I'm sort of recusing myself from this because I'm the DOT is my client now. But before that, when we discussed this and voted on it last June, I added to the motion that we were requesting from Eversource the more information on their exclusion zones. So that's the language they put in their agreement with the city in terms of the exclusion zone about where we couldn't drive piles or do any work. And I forget the exact dimension envelope around their duct bank.
I thought they went about, I think it was 10 yards on either side of those conduits.
10, I think it was 10 feet, but that
10 feet? I thought it was, okay.
Yeah, I think it's 10 feet. That's what I recall. I didn't say, but I don't have that at my fingertips. But we requested more information.
That's a three-dimensional on left, right, and above.
Correct. Yes, it's an envelope. Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't have myself any emails about that. I was trying to search it up here. But that is something we requested and was part of our stipulation for our moving that motion back in June about this. So I don't know if that, because that information is what we're going to have to stand on when it comes to doing any work on that dock in the future, whether it's long-term planning or, my concern at the time was, what if it's damaged in a storm and we need to drive piles right away to get it operable? Long-term planning, hopefully we can work with Eversource. If there's a short-term emergency and we need to get something back in service because something's damaged, we won't want to be waiting for a 3 or 4 month turnaround on information. So, so that information we requested as part of that movement and part of that motion is part of the key paper trail about what we will need to do any work in the future. So, I don't know if we ever got any response after this was the June 28th meeting. It's in the minutes that we were requesting additional information, but I don't know if we received that.
I don't know that we did.
And I think any hearing going format would be the forum to request that information again.
I think, Chris, before we get too anywhere near that meeting, we should get some of us to sit down and just come up with a list of what we're asking for. I know Jeff's interested in that. Not so that we're all speaking in circles with our own stuff, but I think there's a question of having strong points and all being behind them and making a request. My interest would be somehow locating the cable 1,000 feet underground so it will never have to be visited again, so that we don't have to ask to do things. Everybody has a view about how they would like all this done. It's important that we get as a group get some good points, and I'd like to put together a group with Chris and any of the rest of you that just deal with those technical issues, because we want to have this to be maintainable. I said before that the DOT, who are taking care of the bridge technology, if you will, have all of a sudden gone to micro tunneling, and it looks to me to be much deeper, and it's a 6-foot concrete tunnel they're putting under, 2 of them actually, for their cables. Eversource is a much less technical solution, which I don't think is adequate for an active river and an active launch area. That's my 2 cents. And so I think that we need to put all ideas together in one place and prioritize them all and have a pretty organized presentation about that.
Alan, I had a quick question for you, and I really appreciate you bringing that up, because that was something that I actually meant to call you about. Really quick, I don't want to belabor this, but I fully want to help you to put together this more cohesive list so that we can be organized about the response. But your specific question about why is DOT for the bridge equipment able to put this, culvert, so to speak, in, and yet for something that I would think would have just as much, if not more detrimental impact to the harbor, be, in a plastic conduit or in this or whatever. Why is that not being used in the same technology, the same requirements? Why would one feel that this is necessary and one not feel that way?
Good
DOT
questions, Matt. Very good questions,
DOT made their decision fairly recently to change paths, and we don't get to see all their drawings all the time. But Bruce and I go Wednesday, first Wednesday of the month meeting online or sometimes down in South Norwalk. And all of a sudden we find that they're using a micro tunneling technology for the DOT river crossings, which is a deep 60-inch diameter concrete tunnels that you could walk through, and for them, and I've worked in electrical system design, things like that in my career, but you want to be able to change wires and things like that. It's very easy if you can walk in there and do it. You have to power off. It's not something you do every day, but it's accessible. Whereas the what Eversource is proposing is really inaccessible. I mean, it's not easy to service or even go look at. You can't get to it once it's buried. And I think that we need to put thoughts, and really, I think that it's a good question that Bruce or I should ask of the general contractor of the bridge, who we meet with pretty regularly, about why that change was made, because it would make infinite sense for our crossing to get that into a protected tunnel. Nobody has to worry about it again. And if they make the change, it's easy enough to make, not easy, just like, but to go all the way down Elizabeth Street without excavation at all. It's also possible. I think it's too late now, but to do for Eversource to excavate all the way underneath Vets Park at a depth that doesn't hurt anything. But as Pete says, they're already digging. So
yeah, let me know. I'd be happy to join you guys.
Jeff?
Yeah,
Just Jeff.
Knowing what we went through with the siting council, my opinion would be there's no chance to change the route.
Yeah.
And so what we're looking for is the information in the document to better understand the impact on the visitor's dock. That's one thing. But the simplest thing that we need to make the argument for is that if there's added cost to the city, which we don't know what it would be, Eversource pays. That to me is just the simple logic of any project like this when a city resource is being devalued. That the value of pointing out these alternatives are that to point out that there were alternatives to what's being proposed now. But Eversource chose to do this and to put it under a public facility that's essentially unheard of, the utility company doing something. So they pay.
And I don't think it's necessarily has to be a dead issue. It's abhorrent what's going on down there, and it hasn't been adequately pursued by anyone, and we've been ignored.
This was rubber stamped right from the year that Eversource started this.
It's too bad this is last year, because maybe you followed what's been going on in Fairfield with the Connecticut Siting Council. And as a result, there's a court challenge by the town against the Siting Council. And also there's 4 bills that are introduced this session that would change the makeup and the operation of the Siting Council to address what's clearly, rubber stamp to the utility. Well, I say clearly, in our opinion, rubber stamping the utility company, but that doesn't do us any good now.
Right. But I think that the thinking is, you see 2 schools of thought, and we need to move on. But for the DOT crossing at the bridge, for their cables and technology, I think they see the benefit of making something easily maintainable and easily upgradable. I don't think Eversource has the thought process to say this would benefit us for years, and it would be much better for the city of Norwalk if we did this a little differently. And I think that DOT has had that that meeting with the Lord to come along, but I don't know about Eversource. But I think it's something we should not give up on, is getting it right.
We need to be painfully clear about this, because I think at the end of the day, if something happens, DOT is the only entity that's going to have to deal with it from the bridge. But if there's something from the Eversource side, who's going to own them at this point and what's going to be involved and is it going to be a city issue or not, and it's going to be dumped on the city's lap and we're going to be left holding the bag.
Well,
I've been, my career, I've been involved in a lot of very large municipal buildings and facilities, and everybody says, "Oh, we'll take care of that if something happens." But I've learned that you can't do that because everybody forgets the agreement that was made, even if it's in writing. It's like, yeah, okay, we'll come down and talk to you in 6 months about that. You know, it just
Well,
it's just
I'll remind everybody that the Eversource has already paid the city. There's already been payments made to the city. There's already been an agreement to make payments.
Chris,
in lieu of
come
any
on, Chris,
future-
come-
I'm just
Chris,
telling. I'm reminding everybody.
I
that
understand
has already
that, but that's-
happened, and the
that-
city
that's-
and the city has already accepted it, signed off on
Of
it,
course,
accepted
unfortunately,
payment for it.
they accepted
It's bought and sold.
Unfortunately, they made a
Chris,
very stupid.
Oh, John, that's not
uneducated.
necessary.
You're right.
That's
I'll remind the
the-
commission that we've already gotten in trouble for making statements above and beyond our purview here. To
All I can say is going back to what Pete Johnson had pointed out, that if you get a construction company to have to do renovation down at that dock, and all of a sudden they find out that there's 215 kilovolt wires underneath that, we can't do that. We're going to need special equipment. We're going to need special responsibility people that know how to handle that. You know, so we're
That's right. Our only concern about this, the only thing we have to complain about is this document or this request to go under the Norwalk River. That's our what we have to talk about. We don't care about how they go through Vets Park or how they get on Elizabeth Street or any of that. That's not our purview at all. But I think we have a lot to say about how we go under the river. So everybody happy if we end that discussion?
right in the okay.
Stay in our
Okay.
lane.
Shellfish Commission. Mr. Pete Bartish.
No, I don't have much to say today. We went and looked at that over on Harbor View. And Steve and I did, and that was about the only one. He told me there wasn't much going on yet. So that's about it. Not much, quick and easy.
Any questions for Pete?
Nope.
Okay, moving right along, it's Mr. Mangles. Mr. Bartish is gone, Mr. Mangles.
Thanks, Alan. Okay, so I'll be brief. A lot of this stuff was already talked about, but the online moorings, as Bruce pointed out, 113 had paid. This is down a little bit actually from last year, but it is, as he pointed out, some people have sold their boats. It's down by 16, but that's throughout the year. So there may be some other ones coming in. There's 5 under review at this particular point in time. Can't say enough about the newsletter, Chris. Absolutely fantastic. So good that I did send it to the online mooring holders. There was an issue with the online mooring system. To any Gmail recipient of that newsletter they only saw a blank document. They fixed that, so I resent it. So talk about spam. I've got it going on now. Transient moorings. The new mooring balls will be ordered. The city has all the information that they need to make Gilman an approved vendor or authorized vendor, whatever it's called. So we're going to purchase some mooring balls to replace the round mooring balls. These are going to be the can type that you can actually keep the lines clean, make it easier for all the transient boaters. And speaking of which, we already have one reservation for 9 days. So Bruce, I want to get with you and Norm. It's a 47-foot sailboat. So the mooring fields, there's no comment there. They're all paid up. Dakwa, Chris, I also want to talk to you about updating the landing page on Dakwa for Norwalk. So
yeah, that's on my list.
Better images and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I did export the visitor list with the emails. Sent that over to Amelia And we'll get something together to send out the newsletter and to invite them back to Norwalk. Other than that, that's it.
My only comment would be we should look for some other photos to keep changing up that website for DocWa.
Yeah, yeah, that's on the list. I've got a selection of images that we'll use to replace that, and I think we can kind of just punch up a little bit of the verbiage, let people know all the walkability, etc. We can just throw the old marketing hat on and take a look at that.
I have
you
some
go,
good
perfect.
pictures of the Amistad when it was on the.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
I've got a bunch from Gary Wetmore's nephew, Patrick Sykes. He's a pro boat photographer. He sent me a bunch of shots of Amistad when it was in town, when it was spinning around.
Well,
out
all right. Yeah.
tied up at our boat or our building.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
But yeah, anything and
Terrific.
everything, just send on over. When it comes to that kind of stuff, it's the more the merrier.
Fantastic. Any questions for Jeff? Mr. McDonald, finance.
Which finance? I'm afraid that Mariana was out this week, so I wasn't able to get an update on the financial reports. There hasn't been a whole lot of activity. So there's nothing to report in terms of that. We do need to keep in mind our fiscal year with the city is July 1st to July 1st. We got to so the money we requested last year, we had a lot of money outstanding for transient moorings and that. So let's take a look at and if we can spend that money. I know Jeff mentioned we had some purchases of the cans to make and all that. So we certainly have the budget. We have the budget for that. So let's use it.
Did our last year's grant from the city get applied to the?
I don't know because I didn't get the report from her. I have not seen that as yet come in, but it
usually
should be
comes in. It would have been lost last August, maybe is when I think they usually do that. So they're it's $20,000 or $25,000.
Yeah,
we should just check on that.
I will. When I requested the report, then I got back that she's on vacation this week. So, all right. Yep.
Anything else?
No, thanks. No.
Not to make your day, but the bylaws of the Harbor Management Commission say that we have a January to December fiscal year, and I'm just wondering if there's a way we can generate that kind of report 6 months out of sync occasionally, just because it's much easier to think about our season as a calendar year rather than splitting our revenue in the middle of the summer.
Yes. I mean, and that's why we did it. In the way we've always done it, as you recall, we just did it we just tallied it by the month. And whether I bracket, a January to December year or August to July or July to June year, I could spit out a number either way. Because the city money does not follow our guideline. Some years we would have 2 payments and some years we would have 1. It gets out of whack. And we also didn't use it in the way that the city was giving it to us. So I changed it so it didn't look like we had wasted all the money we requested last year. So we have to, we report to the, whatever our thing required for the bylaws is. I don't know what we do with that. What we do have to do is give a report to the city, and that report has to follow their standards.
Talk more offline. I think we could do it both ways, not to make more work, but
that is double the work, but yes, but well, not double the work, but double the
technology you could just put together differently, because I find it much easier to look at the way boating works and the way it's a summer thing rather than a.
Sure, all the mooring money comes in a calendar year, and that doesn't always split well on a July 1st basis. So yes,
You
I
have
think we
everything
just
in an
gotta-
Excel file, right, Chris? It should be not a big deal of separating the months, like you had pointed out.
Right. But you know, um,
So don't worry, Chris, I'll be spending some money for you.
excellent.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Lori is not here. Plans and recommendation. Mr. White, who's the star of this meeting. Oh, you're-
Not at all. So obviously we Alan kind of filled everyone in on the Walkbridge stuff and the hearings. I think we kind of covered that enough. For the newsletter that we're working on again, obviously we have a summer one coming up. I'd really like to, I'd like to try to have that in some sort of a reviewable fashion by the next time we all get together in May, just so we can actually try to get that, out while it is still the season in which it's being written, which is a continuous goal of mine. So yeah, anything that you guys have, anything that comes up, anything we want to get behind, please send my way. I think it's again, just the more information coming from all aspects of it. I know you guys are all super dialed in with, with the harbor, with what's going on, with, various things, community efforts, anything that we want to throw our weight behind. Just send it my way and let me know, and we can start working up an outline, and I can get, I can follow up individually with any other information we might need. And then we can kind of take it from there and get the next one rolling. And then I'd like to start with June with this last one. It was a touch and I didn't find it super applicable just because it was a little bit outdated, some of it, but if we can get it going, for this next month, and then we can really start to hammer this stuff out through, our social channels as well, and just kind of start to dial up the level of steady communication coming from the Harbor Commission to the citizenry at large. So
I think that's terrific. The other thing I was thinking about too with the with Bruce is if we have space for more mooring locations, we should be pushing that out there. As if there's anybody wants to get a mooring space, it sounds like we could recruit a few, and
yeah,
that can't hurt either.
100%. And I mean, and to that point, if there's stuff like that we want to start messaging now, just send it my way and I can work up, we can get Facebook posts out there. We can get this communication out there so that it's going, and then we can always double down again in the newsletter. One of these things, it's always continuation, frequency, consistency of message is always good. So if there is stuff like that, like if there are X many moorings that we have and people want to sign up, just send me whatever pertinent details we have, shoot it to my inbox, and I'll make sure that we get it where it needs to be.
Thanks, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Thank you, Mr. White. Water quality, we don't have a shear line anymore. That's unfortunate. Something that there is still not yet a chairman of the Mayor's Water Quality Commission, so it's not meeting, and is my understanding. Is there any new business? Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Actually, I do have one thing that I just had gotten. So this is regarding the closure of the channel. So West Channel is going to be where the bridge work is. It's going to be occupied from 5/7 to 5/18 and reopened on 5/19. People still be able to get there, get through. It's just that it's the west side of the channel of the bridge.
Yeah, I saw the distribution on that newsletter. Thought it was pretty impressive, actually. I don't know where I saw that, but that communication that goes out about those kinds of things is pretty good, I thought.
And the rowing clubs have already been made amenable.
Yes, yep, they're all notified.
Are they still doing openings during that period, Jeff?
I do not know if they're going to be doing openings during that time.
Yeah, my experience is that the communication from the Walk Bridge part of the project has been pretty good, and people I know that have you know, a lot of cars coming down to East Norwalk and all. It's really easy to get everybody on the mailing list and distribution of if there's the closings of the bridge and things like that, and work on East Norwalk on East Avenue. So I think they're doing a good job. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, and Alan, I just want to make just one
Oh.
point. We, a former application review chairman, Pat Clark. Did you know Pat? She was on the commission. Oh, I'm going to say probably about maybe 10 years ago. She was in charge of the application review. And I just want to say her husband just passed away. She's really an avid boater and certainly a former member of the former Harbor Management Commission. I thought maybe we could probably send a letter condolences from the commission on our behalf.
But also.
Do you want to write that, or do you want me to write that, or how do you want to?
We can take care of that. Well, all right.
You sure? I mean, I can write if you want to give me the address or all, you know.
Yeah.
Or you want to write it? You, Jeff? Or?
So not only a good commissioner, but a friend of ours.
Okay. Well, then you should send that. I'm happy to sign that, or I'm happy to, if you give me the information, I'm happy to write it, whatever.
That's good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
It's good public relations.
Yeah.
And Pete has our new commissioner there. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
John?
Yeah.
Is there a second, Matt?
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Take care,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's a good meeting, everybody.
Be good.